Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Priyanka Neela Krishnan Show with me, your Priyanka Neela Krishnan. I am an enterprise data security product leader, author, and speaker. Couple of my security books include Autonomous Data Security, Jailbreaking LLMs. This is Enterprise Security Series, and today's topic: they stole your session but not your password. And by the way, this is the show for people who defend organizations and want the truth about how attacks actually succeed. As always, one note upfront: this is my independent commentary, my own views, not tied to any employer, product, or vendor. And today we are talking about why turning on multi factor authentication, as important as it is, no longer means your accounts are safe. Attackers adapted. Instead of stealing your password, they now steal the session you get after you log in. The token that proves you already passed MFA, and they walk straight in as you. Over the next 15 minutes, I'll show you how this works, why it has become the leading way accounts get breached, and what actually protects you once you accept that MFA is the floor, not the ceiling. Let us dig in. Let's say you turned on multi-factor authentication across the company and you felt safer. You should have. It closed a real door, so the attackers stopped attacking that door. Instead of your password, they now steal the thing you get after you log in, the session token that proves you already passed MFA. With it, they walk straight into your account, no password, no prompt, as you. This is the episode which is about the attack that makes MFA look like it is watching the wrong door. I am Priyanka Neela Krishnan. I'm an enterprise data security product leader, author, and speaker. A couple of my security books once again: Autonomous Data Security, Jailbreaking LLMs. Let us talk about session theft. Let me start with a hard truth about a control almost everyone trusts. You rolled out multi-factor authentication across your organization and you felt safer. And you were right to. MFA is genuinely good control. It closed a real and heavily used front door, the one attackers walked through with stolen or guessed passwords. But here is what happened next. And it is the whole story of this episode. Attackers are rational. When you lock a door they were using, they do not give up. They look for the next door and they found it, sitting right behind the one you just locked. When you log in and clear your MFA prompt, the system hands your device a session token. Think of it as a wristband that proves you already showed your ID at the entrance. From that moment on, the system stops asking who you are. It just checks for the wristband. So the attackers stopped trying to steal your password and your MFA code, which is hard now, and started stealing the wristband, which turns out to be much easier. With that token in hand, they walk straight into your account as you. No password needed, no MFA prompt triggered, because as far as the system is concerned, the authentication already happened. And this is why so many organizations with MFA fully deployed still get breached through their accounts. MFA is watching the front door. The attackers are climbing in through the window that opens automatically the moment you unlock the door yourself. Let me draw the line precisely because understanding it is the entire defense. On the left is what MFA actually protects: the moment of login. At the point of authentication, MFA verifies who you are by requiring something beyond your password: a code, a prompt, a hardware key. If an attacker has stolen your password but does not have your second factor, MFA stops them cold right there at the front door. That is real protection, and it is why MFA matters. But on the right is what MFA does not protect. This is the gap attackers now live in. Everything after login. So once you have authenticated, the system issues a session token, so it does not have to re-verify you on every single click. That token represents your live logged in session, and MFA has nothing to say about it. If an attacker steals that token, whether by pulling it off your device or intercepting it, they inherit your authenticated session directly. No password required because the login already happened. No MFA prompt because MFA only fires at authentication. And from the system's point of view, authentication is already done. The attacker is simply replaying a valid session that already passed every check. This is the conceptual trap so many organizations fall into. They treat MFA as if it protects the account. It protects the login event. The account stays reachable for as long as that session token is valid and stealable. And that window is exactly where the modern attack operates. Here is the number that proves this is not theoretical. According to HP Valve Security, token theft accounted for 31% of all Microsoft 365 breaches in 2025. 31%. Not a minor technique at the margins. The single leading way accounts got breached ahead of traditional password compromise. Think about what that means in your environment, in an environment, any environment where MFA is widely deployed. The attackers did not defeat MFA by cracking second factors. They went around it entirely by stealing session tokens, and it became the number one method. This is the clearest possible evidence that the battlefield has moved. For years, we told everyone the answer to account compromise was turn on MFA, and that advice was correct and it worked, which is exactly why attackers adapted. They shifted their effort to one part of the authentication flow MFA does not cover: the session that exists after login. And the numbers show the shift succeeded. So when a leader tells me their accounts are secure because MFA is on everywhere, I gently point them at the statistic. MFA being on is definitely necessary, but it is no longer sufficient. And the data is unambiguous about that. The leading attack against your accounts in 2025 was one: your MFA deployment does essentially nothing to stop. That should reframe how you think about account security. From did we turn on MFA to what can a stolen session still reach? Two numbers that show the machinery driving this. First, InfoStealer malware harvested roughly 1.8 billion credentials and tokens in just the first half of 2025, an 800% jump over the previous 6 months. InfoStealers are malware built for exactly this. They silently pull every credential and every session cookie stored in a browser, package them into a neat log file, and ship them to the attacker, often within minutes of infection. And critically, they do not discriminate. Every authenticated session in that browser gets scooped up. Corporate single sign-on, cloud consoles, email, SaaS tools, all of it. A single infected home laptop that someone also uses for work can hand an attacker live sessions into your corporate environment. Second, adversary in the middle, phishing rose about 146%, with roughly 40,000 incidents detected per day. This is the other delivery method. Instead of malware, the attacker puts an invisible proxy between you and the real login page. You type your password, you approve your MFA prompt, everything works normally from your end. And in the background, the proxy captures the session token the moment it is issued. The session token, the proxy which is sitting in between, it captures the session token the moment it is issued. You authenticated perfectly, and the attacker walked away with your session anyway. Put these together and you have an industrial supply chain. Billions of stolen sessions harvested by malware and phishing proxies at massive scale, feeding directly into your account takeover and often ransomware. This is not a boutique attack, it is a factory. So, here is the reframe, and a simple picture makes it stick. Think about checking into a hotel. At the front desk, you show your ID, maybe a credit card, and the clerk confirms you are who you are, whatever you say. That is authentication. That is MFA. But once that initial check-in passes, you are handed a room key. And from that moment on, nobody asks your ID again. The key opens the door. Whoever holds the key is treated as you. A session token is that room key. And the attack we have been describing is simply this. The intruder stopped trying to forge your ID at the front desk, which is hard, and started stealing room keys, which is easy. Because once they have the key, the hotel treats them as a legitimate guest with no further questions. So the reframe is that security cannot stop at authentication. Verifying identity at the moment of login is necessary, but it is only the front desk. Real security has to extend into the session itself, because that is where the attacker now lives. You have to protect the room key with the same seriousness you protect the ID check. That means limiting how long the key works, rechecking identity before the most sensitive actions, binding the key to the specific device it was issued to, and being able to cancel a key the instant it looks stolen. Protect the key, not just the front door, because the attacker already figured out that the key is the easier target. 3 moves for your Monday. First, shorten sessions and re-verify. Many organizations issue session tokens that stay valid for days or weeks which hands an attacker an enormous window to use a stolen one. Cut those lifetimes for sensitive systems and force re-authentication before high-risk actions like moving money, changing access, or exporting data. A stolen token that has already expired or that gets challenged before it can do damage is worth much less. Second, bind sessions to the device. This is the direction the industry is moving, and it is the real structural fix. With phishing resistant authentication and device bound sessions, the token is cryptographically tied to the specific machine it was issued to. So a token lifted from your laptop simply does not work when replied and replayed from the attackers. That breaks the replay attack at its root. Newer browser capabilities are starting to make this practical at scale. And third, hunt info stealers and revoke fast. Since the supply of stolen sessions comes largely from info stealer infections, actively watch for them on your endpoints and watch for the telltale signs of a replayed session, like a login from an impossible location moments after a legitimate one, and make sure you can kill a session instantly when something looks wrong. When you cannot prevent the theft, the speed of your revocation becomes your last line of defense. Shorten the window, bind the key to the device, and be ready to cancel it fast. Let me close by challenging the metric that gives so many organizations false confidence. Stop measuring your account security by whether MFA is turned on. For years, that was the headline question, and getting to yes was a real achievement, indeed. But the attackers have moved past it, and if your assessment of account security in such MFA is deployed, you're grading yourself on a test the adversaries stopped taking. The better question, the one that actually reflects today's threat, is this: what can a stolen session still reach? Because sessions will be stolen with billions of tokens harvested and phishing proxies running at scale. Some of your user sessions are going to end up in an attacker's hands. That is not defeatism, it is planning. So assume it and then ask the hard questions. How long does that stolen session stay valid? What can the holder do with it before anything challenges them? How fast can you detect the misuse and cut it off? Those questions lead you to the real controls: short-lived sessions, device binding, fast revocation, and tight limits on what any session can reach. MFA is the floor, not the ceiling. It is necessary, keep it, but it is not where account security ends anymore. The real work now happens in the hours after a token walks out the door. And that is exactly where most organizations are not looking. Move your attention there because the attackers already have. This is the source slide from which we've gathered references and content for our presentation today. I'll give a few seconds for you to glance it through. All right. This was episode 53. The one thing to remember: multi-factor authentication protects the login, not the session that comes after it. And attackers now steal the session instead of the password. Shorten your sessions, bind them to the devices, and be able to revoke them fast. If this was useful, please do subscribe and share it with whoever owns identity in your organization. Tell me in the comments whether your account security assessment stops at MFA is on or actually asks what a stolen session can still reach. That second question is the one that matters now. And I am Priyanka Neela Krishnan, and I'm an enterprise data security product leader, author, and speaker. A couple of my security books: Autonomous Data Security and Jailbreaking LLMs. This has been my independent commentary on enterprise data security, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay secure, be happy, everybody. Bye.